and welcome to the Buzzer Race. This episode is for us working on this project to just kind of introduce ourselves so we aren't complete strangers, and also talk about what this podcast is about so you kind of understand why are we doing this in the first place. I'm Nikhil Ranjan. I am a former Texas JCLer. I played Nationals Certamen for 4 years while in the TSJCL. And I now just kind of write questions for tournaments, help maybe run, and read or moderate sometimes.
Hi, I'm Zhang. I was a former JCLer from Ohio, and I just graduated this year, so I am not currently involved in any of, like the collegiate Certamen or whatever, but I'm hoping to get involved in it. And I played Certamen at Nationals for 4 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Kyle, and I'm formerly from Wisconsin. Currently, I'm part of the VSCL, and I was involved in Certamen by playing for 4 years at the national level, and I'm currently involved as a question writer, and yeah.
Okay, so hi, I'm Teddy Trakas. I played Certamen at Nationals for 4 years for the great state of Texas. And I'm also a recently graduated senior/freshman, so I'm not that involved yet.
And I'm Danny Nguyen, a current JCLer and senior at Boston Latin School in Massachusetts.
Okay, so I think that most of the people listening to this podcast will know what Certamen is, but for those who don't, Certamen is a Latin word meaning contest or struggle, but today it's often used to describe this quiz bowl style game that tests students on various parts of Latin and Roman civilization. So how is a Certamen round actually structured? So there are lots of different ways to play Certamen, but we are mainly focusing on the competitive side of Certamen, which takes place at various state junior classical league or Latin conventions. There are different college Certamen, and the pinnacle of Certamen is the national convention every summer. Most Certamen rounds have 20 questions where, it is Latin quiz bowl, so anyone who plays quiz bowl will be familiar with this terminology. There are 20 toss-ups in each round. Every player on every team, there are 3 teams in a round, will have the opportunity to get a toss-up. If they get it right, then their team gets 10 points and they have the opportunity to answer 2 bonuses for 5 points each. But if you get the toss-up wrong, then your team cannot answer for the rest of the toss-up. So that kind of is where the strategy is. You not only need to know things, but you also need to be able to interrupt well, where you're not disadvantaging your team, and you're also able to get the questions faster than everybody else. Certamen focuses on 4 main categories. There's, of course, the Latin language, which I think is kind of the foundation of it, and that is where the plurality of the questions are in each round. But there's also sections on Roman history, culture, and geography. There's Greco-Roman mythology, and there's Latin literature. So as I mentioned earlier, the biggest tournament is nationals, and most tournaments are structured like nationals, where there are 3 preliminary rounds where in each prelim, you play against 2 other teams, and the top 9 teams in terms of points move on to the semifinals. Whoever wins the semifinals moves on to finals, and then whichever of the 3 teams wins finals obviously wins the tournament.
There's actually much more to the game of Certamen than a competition and the results themselves. We actually wanted to focus on the community, without which the game would not be possible. Lots of community figures have really great stories of competing or interesting perspectives on the direction that the game is headed. And so this podcast serves as a platform for everyone to get to know them, not only as Certamen players, but as people. So hopefully to get you more involved in the Certamen scene as well.
Yeah, and a kind of aim of this podcast is that anyone can listen to it and, understand what's going on. Like, it's not critical that really deep cuts, as people will describe obscure facts, but it's just rather that you can get the narrative and get people's experiences as they compete. And I mean, we've already kind of discussed what we like, kind of why we did this, but we also kind of have things we hope people kind of get out of this. And one of the big things is just how fun it is to listen to people's stories. Like you hear these different perspectives, different time frames, and people like joining maybe their like final year of high school, someone who's been doing it since like sixth grade. Like you hear these vast different experiences, people joining, leaving, coming back. It's it's insane the variety of like stories you get to hear and you get to learn about these people, because this community we have all these people who are kind of like just well known, like you hear them by name. Maybe they're like a chair and they're the person who tells you at nationals 15 minutes have now passed in the testing period, you can now leave the room and turn in your exams and whatnot, but you know nothing about them. You like know their name and that's pretty much it. And we hope by having this podcast and interviewing various people that you actually get to know them and they seem like a more like they seem like a person. They aren't just this weird like adult like figure that you can't really talk to a lot. And yeah, I think that's probably the main thing we hope. We also, I mean, we hope everyone has fun. We have so much fun interviewing everyone who has come on so far and everyone who will come on, because everyone's just a blast. And I mean, that's like the beauty of the Certamen scene, right? Is that everyone is just super cool and nice and fun to talk to.
And another thing that I hope that you can get out of the podcast is I know personally during my time as a JCLer, I was pretty confined to the people within my state. And I didn't really get to know that many people outside of it until my senior year, where I started meeting, these Texans and Massachusettsans and Wisconsinites. And I think that by listening to the podcast, you can get a much more national view of the Certamen scene and start to appreciate not just your own state, but the whole national Certamen scene as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing about Certamen until this epidemic, pandemic, I don't know, people ascribe different terms to this. Like, the scene wasn't really that integrated. Like, everyone knew people within their own state, even that's debatable sometimes. But no one really knew each other outside of states. Like, there were a couple of people here and there who knew each other, but it was pretty limited. And I think this is a good time for that type of interaction to take place. Everyone's now like, on the internet. And it's also just really natural. So you will like most likely run into some of these people while like playing a tournament online, because they will just be your moderator coincidentally. That seems to be actually highly likely for some people we interview. So I mean, yeah, I think that's the beauty of like learning about people's stories, is you get to know them better. And I mean, that's kind of why we did this podcast, and we hope you have a lot of fun as we go through the various episodes with various people. And yeah, let us know what you think. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope to see you on the first episode. Take care.